Hi, this is Angelo Bruscus for North Beach Community TV and NorthBeachNow.com, and we're out here on the beach today at Pacific Boulevard Approach, where the folks from the COASST annual bird survey are out here looking for deceased birds and other factors that are here out on the beach. And we're with Susan and Jeannie, and they'll introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about what they're doing out here today.
Hello, I'm Susan. We actually do a survey once a month, and but this is about an annual one for us. We've done it 11 years. It's COASST through the University of Washington, and I'll let Jeannie explain what that is.
Hi there, I'm Jeannie, and COASST is spelled C-O-A-S-S-T, stands for Coastal Observation Seabird Survey Team, and it is sponsored by the Department of Marine Sciences and Fisheries, and they have been instigating these kinds of surveys all up and down the Pacific coast from Northern California, Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. Canada has its own process for dealing with beached birds, and so what we'll be doing today is walking the beach looking for carcasses of seabirds that have washed in. They can be on the beach in great numbers or very few. Sometimes they're entangled in seaweed and under driftwood pieces, and sometimes out near the surf line. So we'll spread out and walk the beach and see what we can find. And when we find any dead ones, we put them in a bucket, as Susan has right here. So that's our process of looking for the dead birds. And then we record information about them. And usually what we do is set up a laboratory, if you will, on a large log, and we lay out the bird carcasses. We group them by type, if we can recognize the different species easily. And sometimes we only get parts of them, maybe only the pair of wings. But we go through a process that is the same process used by all of the coasters along the coast to discover exactly what species we have and look for oil and any other telltale signs of reasons why the birds are beached.
Okay, so now we're going to start fanning out across the beach here and talk a little bit about your process, how you go about covering the entire beach from Pacific Boulevard down to Ocean Lake Way.
Our team, which consists of Jeannie and I, but we always have some helpers who like to go along. So today we have 3 extra people, which will be nice. We walk from the shoreline up to the dunes, and we each kind of walk and look in a zigzag fashion. If we see a feather, we go and scrape it with our feet. If we see any lump in the sand or check behind logs, we may find some deceased pelagic seabirds. After we get several in a bucket, then we find a nice log and we sit down and spread them out and get out our paperwork and note different characteristics of the bird. And I think that's kind of how we do it. We walk from here down to the Ocean Lake Way approach, which is about 2 miles. And at that point, we do another, I guess you'd call it a measurement of the beach from shore to dunes. And we then finish up with our surveying and walk back and hopefully not find too many more, because hopefully we've done a good job on the way down.
So we're out here at the end of the bird survey for today, and they found 1 wing. And Jeannie, why don't you describe a little bit what you've got there?
Okay. The wing that we have here, and I'm not sure if you can see that well, is a fairly long wing. It's about 34 centimeters long, and it shows some black tips on the end with what we call fingernails or windows. And those are the white open places of white feathers in the middle of the black. And so we have a wing key table in our reference book where we look to see what birds correlate to that length of wing, which is 34 centimeters, and this description. And there may be several of them. So if we're unable to determine which ones those are, then we will make a note of that on our log sheet and let the experts look at our pictures and decide back home at the University of Washington.
Well, we don't know exactly what it is yet because we were dealing with just a wing. Normally, you get legs or a head. With the legs, you measure the feet, and you can see what kind of claws they have, whether they're webbed or not webbed. And you measure the tarsus bone. The length of it tells you, the size of the leg and the foot. But just with the wing, there's lots of wings that are that length, but we're just trying to coordinate the coloring to it. So we have 3 or 4 abilities that we just have to do some studying. So look at this here.
Yeah,
and
that looks like that. Yeah, yeah. And down here, along here, they're white.
Yeah.
Along this area, they're white on the tips.
It's a beautiful coloration, though.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, I'd say we're close.
Next thing we do, if we can't identify it, is we fill out the placard and we take a photo of it and we send it off to the University of Washington, and they have the experts there, and they probably can tell you instantly what it is. Or they have the young kids that are PhD, studying for it, and they put some time in and they can look and find it.
And when we're finished,
But there's only been 1 or 2 birds we've never been able.
What do we do with the carcasses when we finish?
Oh, we walk them gently with the utmost respect out to the surf, and hopefully they get washed away so we don't have to recount them.
How rare is it that you only find 1?
Well, during the summer months, usually like July, August, September, we don't find any. But it's unusual. I'm thinking maybe it has to do with all the king tides and the tsunami that came in here this last week and washed either way up there or took them all out.
Often you'll see birds that will really struggle in those those big storms.
Yeah.
And they won't make it through.
And they starve.
Right.
It's too long.
They just get worn out.
Yeah.
And there's a number could be, if it's 32 to 37, it could be a bluegill. If it's 34 to 40, it could be a ring-billed gull.
Yeah.
If it's 34 to 42, it could be
California
gull. If it's 38 to 44, it's the western.
Well, it'd be those 3 anyway.
So it'll be
top
the
3.
top 3. Yeah. So there's a choice.
Yeah.
Anyway. So that's what we found today.
And when will you do when will you survey the beach again next?
Every month we do it.
So next in February?
Yes, we'll do it again
roughly
in
the
February.
same time?
Yeah. Usually what happens is we get a big deluge of birds if there's a problem. Storms where they can't forage well, they get weak, they get washed ashore, like that, and then struggle and die. Or if we have these conditions called harmful algae blooms, where a certain species is very susceptible to that condition and they die. The common murre is a classic for that.
Do you find many migratory shorebirds during the migratory seasons?
We see the sooty shearwaters,
Oh.
and they do come in clusters. In particular, I'm thinking. We had a whole bunch of Cassin's auklets at one time, too, here not too long ago. And I guess I would call them seasonal. I don't know that they come from. They're not shorebirds. They're really
gulls
pelagic
and,
birds.
Yeah.
They live at sea.
Okay.
And they probably hang out on some small rock outcroppings or out little islands offshore where they nest. Or they've come from the north up there where there's the big rocky cliffs. A lot of the common murres live there and along the Oregon coast too.
fascinating, just great stuff that you guys do out here. It's just
So just FYI, so if you're ever out here when the birds are migrating and you see a string of birds out on the horizon, most of all of those are sooty shearwaters, and there's like gazillions of them. And so just natural mortality, you know, they die, they starve to death and that kind of stuff, and then they wash up. But the last couple times we had, 2 of the last 3 walks, we had that short-tailed shearwater, and that was the first time we've ever seen that bird.
really, huh?
Yeah.
We get all excited when it's
Yeah.
a new bird.
And then there's rhinoceros auklets, caissons auklets. Every now and then there's marbled murrelets.
And a puffin.
Wow,
Yeah,
that'd be
and
amazing if
puffins,
you saw a murrelet out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw an
Oh,
albatross once too. That
Really?
Yeah.
that was like that high from tip to tip.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So,
And a big pelican.
COASST is a 16-year-old citizen science organization based at a university and run by scientists. What we do is go out to coastal communities, small coastal communities, from Northern California all the way on up to Kotzebue in Alaska, that's above the Arctic Circle, and then over to the Commander Islands in Russia. Kind of a big footprint. And when we're there, we're recruiting local coastal residents to come spend 5 hours training with us. What are we teaching them to do? This sounds super geeky. We're teaching them to go to their beach and search for dead birds, birds that have washed in the tide. When they find those birds, they're using specific tools that we give them to record data, and from that data make a deduction, a scientific deduction. And that deduction is basically, what species do I have in front of me? So they're not guessing, they're not flipping through the book and holding it up like doing the flower colors. They're actually taking measurements like a wing or a foot measurement or a bill measurement, and looking at a particular shape of foot, how many toes, where are they? And then using that information to figure out, well, what do I have in front of me? We validate every single observation. So if you're out there on the beach and you say, that's a common murre, you're sending the evidence back to us. So our experts in-house can look at those measurements, can look at the photographs that you've taken, can look at the comments that you've made and say, yep, you're right, that was a common murre. Or nope, that's actually a marbled murrelet, and here's how to tell the difference. Other kinds of programs have so many people out there collecting information that even though each individual observation isn't validated, we can use statistical techniques to prune them off. So if you send in an eBird report that says, I saw 20 whooping cranes, like as not, we're going to prune that out of the data set. So citizen science gives us some of the longest running, broadest spatial extent data that we have that tells us where organisms were when. And that really is the basis on which we can not only do biodiversity science, we can also do applied science. We can take that data and we can ask questions about, well, are there as many Carolina wrens here now as there were before? Has there been a shift in what we're seeing in albatross populations as a function of fisheries? As we've experienced climate change and global warming and an increase in sea surface temperature, do we see a shift in the distribution of seabird populations or a change in the migration pattern? In my program, we experience all of those things as literally bodies washing up on the beach at different times. So why go out and spend not only a glorious day in the summer, but a cold, windy, rainy day in the winter? Why do that? Because you know that your time and the data that you collect will be well used, and used in a way that you as an individual couldn't have that same voice. So it allows everybody to participate in science, and through science to have a larger voice in the community.